from the MITM Business Consultants
comes Man in the Middle, your one-stop shop for financial tips and tricks that big banks and corporate America won't teach you
and don't want you to know.
Discussing the latest and greatest products, services, skills, and habits to grow and support the financial needs of your business and you. Giving you the knowledge to help make your own important choices for your business and you.
Disclaimer: Man in the Middle expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, reliance on, or inability to use this podcast or the information presented in this podcast.
Now, here is your Man in the Middle with 10 years of experience in the financial and banking industry, Art Abrahamian.
What's going on, everybody? This is episode 6 of Man in the Middle. We are happy to be back, and we hope everybody had a great holiday season with their families and loved ones. This episode is going to be about employee retention. We have been away for a couple weeks, just dealing with stuff on the back end, but we are back at it, and we should be back to our normal weekly schedule. So I'm here with George, the man. What's going on?
How's it going, my guys? How you guys doing today, huh?
Everybody should be hopefully doing well, and if not, maybe this podcast might be the reason because of it. So we are into employee retention today.
Employee retention.
And I think this is huge, right? And I have a lot of stories I'm going to be sharing about today.
I'm sure you do, my friend.
Because employee retention, oh, man. It's so funny. We talk to a lot of people during the week, and it's the same thing I'm getting from all the owners. I'm desperate. I just need people. I can't find people. It's hard to find people. And
do you think that this is due to the pandemic, or you think it's due to the world economic system at the moment? Or
I think it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
There's this unrealistic expectation that every job should pay you millions of dollars.
Yeah. Well.
And it's like, I get it. Wage is really important because this is your livelihood. I understand it. But then there's also a level to it where it's like a business owner can't afford to pay people that kind of money when he's not generating that kind of money. Also, one more thing to keep in mind is a lot of people like to talk about wages as the core issue of the economic, impact on a lot of people's lives. But it's not the wages issue. It's actually an inflation issue. So you can make $30 an hour, but your milk's going to go to $15 a gallon. So I think part of the issue is people are chasing money, which is why a lot of our clients are losing staff. But I can tell you from personal experience that chasing money is the dumbest thing you could do. Now, if it's some sort of outlandish deal where it's like $30,000 more than what you're making now, it's obvious that's a great choice. But I can tell you from personal experience, being approached by other banks when I was a relationship manager at the time, I was getting job offers of $10,000, $15,000 more, and I wouldn't take it.
Why is that, though? Can you explain to us why?
Yeah, so, at the time, before things really started going downward, in terms of my happiness at work and the BS that I had to deal with, in the heyday of it all, I had 4+ weeks of vacation. I didn't have to worry about anybody or anything. I was established in my role for at this time, it was 7 years in out of the bulk of my career, and people knew me. So it wasn't like this, I got to prove myself. I got to work extra hard. It's everybody knows who you are. You work your way up to the tier of seats, and now people know who you are. And that's nice too, because it's at those interviews, people were like, what's your salary request? And I give them a number, and the number was never the issue. But then when I'd say, so tell me about your retirement plan, tell me about your insurance, tell me about your vacation. And they're like, oh, we only do 1 week a year. And I'm like, nah, it's not going to cut it for me.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
It's like that 10 grand more a year. You know why I'm going to make 10 more thousand a year? Because I'm going to be working twice as hard. For what? And especially when it's I'm not struggling for cash. At that point, there's something called QOL, which is called quality of life. And I feel like depending on your age group and depending on the current situation that you're in, like you go in cycles. Like in a certain cycle in your life, you're hungry and you're just about that cash. And that's all that matters. Friends don't matter, families, whatever, fun is non-existent. You're just about money. Right. And I was in that phase working my way up to where I got to. But then, you have a family, you have a daughter, like me, we had our daughter. And things kind of
your priorities
shifted.
had changed a lot. Yeah,
the priorities changed. It was less about making more money and more about enjoying my daughter growing up. Getting up early to go get ready for work, to not even be able to spend mornings with her. And a lot of people ask why I only do like appointments in the office here after 10 for me individually. And I'm like, because 8 o'clock, me and my daughter up, we're having breakfast, we go to the park, we spend time together, and then I leave. Because where I'm at in my current situation in life is I'm not interested in making millions and millions of dollars. I just need enough money to keep food on the table, keep the lights on. Everything else is
that makes
more
a lot
about
of sense.
quality of life.
Yeah.
So going back to where we're at with this employee retention piece is a lot of my employers are talking about how they can't keep employees, but there's a lot of self-reflection there, and I have to bring it up to them. It's easy to say, oh, well, no one wants to stick around or nobody wants to work, which there is certain aspects of that, which is true. I'm totally aware that people are just choosing not to work and, whatever the situation may be, because they make just as much money, if not more money, staying at home. And that's, that's a choice that they're allowed to make because they're making it. But there's plenty of people out there who know, especially right now, I think it's an employees market. Because employees know they could go somewhere else for more money. But then we're going back to what services are being provided other than the paycheck to this employee. And I think what's definitely happened in today's day and age is that people have woken up to the fact that they don't have to be slaves to their companies anymore, which is, I think, was like the big thing. And I'm not talking about any of our clients. I'm talking about more of like big corporate America, Fortune 500 companies.
Right.
Where it's like they used to value and appreciate their employees. That's like in the heyday of how I felt valued and appreciated. But then it just got to a point where it was like, this is super abusive. And you keep asking for more. And no matter what I do, it's wrong. And you focus on what I've done wrong and not what I've done right. And it just got to a point where it's just too much. So I understand. I'm not going to stick around anywhere where I'm being treated like trash. So I think when employees are telling their bosses, well, I could go here for $16 an hour and you're paying me $14. Well, it's up to the employer to say, yeah, you could totally make $2 more an hour. Or, we could discuss, is that the only concern you have? Is it hours? Is your hours the problem? Is it your wage that's a problem? And if they say it's just a wage issue, then I think you're not offering enough as an employer. Because if your employees are only chasing money, then you haven't provided anything of value to them. They don't have a loyalty to your company. And actually, one of our points discusses... you should have it there. Which point?
The salary and benefits must be competitive.
No.
That's not it?
No, it's the one that says be a brand that they can be proud of. That's
number 7.
Right. So it's like becoming a brand, right? That's super. And we talk about this all, the brand recognition.
I think we had that on.
Yeah, we talk about brand recognition.
Podcast, yeah.
But we're beyond brand recognition. It's not just people knowing the brand, it's people repping the brand, right? So it's not just wearing the man in the middle and putting it on everything that we have. It's living it. Like, I'd like to think everybody who's involved in the projects here are proud to be involved because there's a sense of freedom for them where their ideas, their concepts, the way they would love to do things, the way they've always wanted to do things gets intake. Like, there's an intake with it. Like, we listen to it, we implement it, we strategize with it, and it makes people who work with us, whether it's clients, whether it's employees, whether it's anybody that just interacts with us on a daily basis, feel valued. And I think that's a key factor because we have plenty of people outside this company that refer to this company, and they have plenty of options. They don't have to pick man in the middle. They don't have to pick MITM. They could pick the bigger companies. But they don't. And why? And truly, I feel like they don't, because of the fact is they're proud to work with us. They know that when they hand their clients to us, it's with the utmost care, and we don't take for granted the respect and the relationship we have with our vendors.
Yeah.
I feel like an employee has to feel the same way about their job. That, yeah, you could offer me $2 more, but you're not like my boss. You're not like my manager. You're not like, and that's a huge factor, right? Like, team building is really important. When we're talking about employee retention, we're talking about team building. I remember in a board meeting at the bank once, they ended up finding out a statistic that for each disgruntled employee you have, it's a total of $5,000 in lost revenues every year per employee.
Wow. That's a lot of money.
So if you have a team of 10 people and 3 of them are just not happy, and it doesn't necessarily mean they could be unhappy with work. They could be unhappy with their life. They could be stressed out because of family. They could be stressed out because of financial situations. And that's $5,000 a year that you as the owner are losing due to loss of productivity per person. So that's $15,000 just for 3 people. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, how am I supposed to help them? You know?
Just make them feel appreciated at
Right.
work.
So it's you know when somebody's doing okay or not. And it's not necessarily telling the employer that you need to become the finance wizard, you need to become the psychologist, you need to become a doctor. Like, no, that's not it. But it takes very little effort to take a 5-minute break and sit down with somebody and be like, hey, George, what's going on? I've noticed you're not as happy when you're walking around here. I'd like to talk to you. Is there something going on that you want to talk about? Is there anything that we can provide you? Meaning, do you need some time off? Give your employees some time off. You want to know part of, and we said this before, is like when you guys aren't in the mood to work, I'd rather you not come in.
You did say that last time. Yeah.
I'd just rather you not.
Yeah.
I'd rather you take a day to recharge and come back happy than come back with a shitty attitude. I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want our customers to deal with it. And reality is you're just not in the right mindset. It could be totally unrelated to what's going on here. And most of the time that's the case. It's just something going on at home. And part of what we do is we give you that time. But if it starts becoming like a chronic problem where you're just unhappy to come in every day, well, we got to talk. Is it here? Is this working for you? Because if you're not happy here, we want you to be happy. But also, if we start realizing that it's like, let's say, deeper level than that, and you're more unhappy with what's going on in life, is it financial? Great. I mean, in this certain scenario, this company is about finances, so we really help our own team members figure out what's going on financially, and we help them through. But let's say we're a pool company, and you're just not happy. Okay, so what's going on? Well, finances are getting tough. I'm getting stressed. Okay, great. We, look for avenues for this employee of yours. If you don't work with, our company or our organization, reach out to an organization that does. If your employees are suffering financial, they can call us and say, hey, we want to pay for a service that whenever our employees are stressing out about money, they can call one of you guys to help them figure it out. And what is that going to cost? Not millions. Maybe $1,000 to $2,000 annually for that service. But to have the employee happy again, working just as hard as he ever did. And then not only that, appreciating the fact that he works for a company and organization that actually cares, right?
That's a big one.
It goes beyond just the paycheck. And until employers can realize that if your sole claim to fame is, well, I pay my guys really well, I don't think you're a good company.
And you won't make it too far, right?
You may make it, but there's going to be a certain level of if your claim to fame is just I pay my guys better than everybody else, that doesn't mean you're doing a good thing. Yeah, you're paying them great, fantastic, keep that up. But what else? You know what I mean? When your soul, when you can just look in the mirror and say, well, the only reason everybody's here is because I pay them more. That doesn't really sound as good as, I may not be able to pay as much as my competitors, but my staff loves working here.
Yep.
They're passionate. Yep. They love what they do. They love where they work, and they tell everybody how happy they are. It's better to be the place everybody wants to work because of the culture the company culture that you set in place rather than the place that pays. Because the type of people you're attracting to aren't long-term employees.
Makes a lot of sense.
When your focus is money, you're going to attract people whose focus is money, and people whose focus is money
Have a attitude.
have the attitude that if it pays me more, I'm game. But they don't look to it like, this is the place I want to be. My boss is really good. My managers are
Emotionally
great.
unstable.
Yeah, it's kind of just like they're loose cannons of money. They just want money wherever they go.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's very true, my friend. Well, I know that's a big one, especially here in America. Most of our employers treat employees like crap.
Yeah,
so.
bigger ones do. You know, and it's funny. We one of my really close clients. He's an attorney. He's a really great attorney, and he's traveled the world multiple times.
Oh, really?
And he has literally represented the United States of America as an attorney overseas. And one of the things he does now is he's a workers' comp attorney. And if you talk to, and one, you know what? I'm going to try to see if I can get him on.
That'd be awesome.
I'm going to try to see if I can
You
get him on this podcast, because not only is he a worldly man, but his insight as to how the U.S. treats their employees versus the rest of the world is incredible. The reason he does what he does is because he's traveled the world and seen how other countries treat people versus how we treat people here, and he's disgusted by it. And he's made it his sole mission in life to help people get something back for all the years and years of labor that they put in. And I remember we talk all the time, and when we talk, it's a minimum of an hour talk. And he tells me, you know, when I'm in Germany, he travels the world every year. He goes around the world. That's what he does. He goes, when I'm in Germany and I go to a factory to see how people are working, everything is designed for the employee. The benches are a certain height so that their back doesn't hurt and that they're not hunching over.
Wow.
The machines are designed to lift certain weights so that they don't hurt themselves lifting. And I couldn't believe it, thinking about, wow, it's like,
I've never even heard
that's
of
an
that,
unheard of concept. I mean,
Yeah.
we know, like with Amazon, for instance,
Yeah.
like the issues they're going through, right? Where people literally said they had to pee in bottles.
Yeah, you hear about that all the time.
Like, that's crazy to me to think that you're being watched on a camera, and if you go use the restroom too many times a day, you're fired.
Yeah.
Like, I feel bad for those people, because those are the type of people who work there because they don't really have much of a choice. They're desperate for cash. They're not finding a good paying job anywhere, and they may have a family that needs to be upkeep. You know, there's an upkeep there, and it's unfortunate to see it, because financial freedom doesn't mean having a lot of money. It just means having the choice. That's what true financial freedom means. Like when you have a choice to do it or not to do it. Not versus, I don't have a choice, so I have to do it, or else my family's going to starve and I'm going to end up on the street. And there was a bank that recently, you know, not recently, it's been a couple of years now, that has gone through that scandal. You know, a certain bank, a lot of horses involved.
We're not going to name it.
We're not going to name it. There's some horses
Yeah.
and a W.
Yeah.
And I could tell you, you know, as a former representative of that company, it was the same way, where it's like people, you know, we had customers coming in when the whole account scandal thing happened, and they were just like, you guys are disgusting. And I never partook in it because I kept my job during that time, because I never did that. I just felt like that was a stupid thing to do, where people are just opening accounts without clients knowing. But I didn't blame the employees when they knew the story of, like, their bosses literally telling them, if you don't do this, you're going to lose your job. And some of those people were the only breadwinners in their families. How do you choose between letting your family starve and doing something that you shouldn't be doing because they're pushing you so freaking hard? Like, I remember if we didn't make certain calls, like we had a number of calls we had to make, I remember they used to throw people in the closet. There used to be a phone in the closet. And if you didn't make the calls that you were supposed to make, they'd throw you in that closet an hour after you were working, and you'd make those dials. Like, if you talk to some employees at banks everywhere, careful now. if you talk to some employees at banks or other companies, like the abuse that was taken emotionally, mentally, just constantly being pressured and pushed and pressured and pushed.
Sounds like a toxic environment to work in.
Super toxic environment. That's why I just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, you got fed up with it, huh?
It's just a point where it's like, I can't. When you wake up in the morning
and you dread it,
and you dread going to work, it's time to go.
Yeah.
It's like, it's time to move on. And I told my wife this the other day. I said, I don't even look forward to Fridays anymore. She goes, what do you mean? I said, I love every day.
Damn, that's awesome.
Like, I don't care that it's a Friday. It doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't make a difference.
Monday, Friday, Wednesday, Saturday. I'm happy.
That's how you know you're in a good place.
Yeah, it's like I'm super happy with my decision and moving forward, and that's just finding your inner peace with that stuff. And I want to touch base on employee engagement.
Yeah,
right.
I'm sure we can all relate to that in some sort of way.
So a Gallup poll showed 56% of somewhat disengaged and 73% of actively disengaged employees are actively looking for a different job.
Wow.
So
Hey,
56% of somewhat engaged, meaning like, what do you guys think? That's all they said. And 56% of them are somewhat engaged.
Wow.
73% of actively disengaged employees are looking for another job. What that means
And this is here in America, right?
Yeah, this is an American poll that came out from Gallup.
Wow.
The first thing people like to do is blame their employees. And that's not what should be done, right? Mm-hmm. For their distractions, their disengagement. Distraction, and this is really important. I hope everybody who's listening understands this. Disengagement and distraction is a direct result of lack of motivation.
From the employee.
Just in general.
Okay.
As an employer, you need to understand that it's your responsibility to motivate your employee. And that doesn't mean financially. You don't have to compensate them for motivation. But offering something as a coffee, taking your guy out for a coffee and saying, hey, man, what can I do to make this experience better for you? It's about swallowing your pride more than anything else, because I feel like a lot of people have this mentality like, well, things here are really great, and if you don't like it, go somewhere else.
Yep. Hear it all the time, my friend.
And it's like,
All the
but
time.
if they were really great, how come I feel like this? And if they were really great, how come you keep losing people? So your perception of what's really great means you as the owner think it's really great because you set the rules, you make the most money, and you call the shots. And it's like, yeah, of course, that's great. That's great for anybody.
And you know what, man? That's why I try to treat most of my employees with a lot of respect. And every once in a blue moon, I'll take them donuts, pizza, just to show them that I appreciate them for the work that they do. Because oftentimes the head honcho, he's nowhere to be seen. And when he is, you don't hear too much of him when it comes to motivation and inspiration within the company.
Right. Employees who are engaged in learning are usually more engaged to work. So what I wrote out was learning opportunities doesn't mean teaching them math, right? Like that's not what I'm saying. Not sitting them down in a classroom but just teaching them a little bit more than what they know. So cross training, teaching them how to be the manager, teaching them how to do this, teaching them how to do a million other things. It's really engaging because the thing is, mentorship programs are huge. When I talk to people and we do like employee evaluations for clients to help them figure out company structure, some of the questions we ask their employees are, what is your goal with this company? Like, where is your end goal? Obviously, it's not your entry-level position. And if it is, great. Then continue working on it. But most people have aspiration to achieve greater. And you pick a job for the money and you don't ask the question, what is my opportunity to move up? Right? And if they say, well, there's no moving up, then you're stuck. Before you even started, you're stuck. That means your job, your salary is going to increase slightly, but you'll never go beyond where you are. You've already put yourself at a ceiling. Whereas taking less money, but giving the opportunity to grow within a company, that's awesome. putting a platform in place so that those disgruntled employees can work harder for a reason. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Instead of telling them to work harder, why? For what? Mm-hmm. But if they work harder because they have a goal to become a lead, to become a manager, to become this, like those mentorship programs are super, super important. One, it's going to teach that employee a lot about themselves that they didn't even know or what their capabilities even are. And two, it gives you great joy because now you know this person is dedicated to you and your company, and he will make a great supervisor, manager, but you have to follow through too. You can't just promise people things that you never, you know. And that's called a leadership ladder, by the way. So that's what that's called. So creating a leadership ladder is super important. It pretty much says entry level, mid-level, high tier, you know, executive. But there's a tier. It's not this like, well, you come in, you do this, and that's that.
That's yeah. Wow. Amazing. So hiring the right person from the start.
Yeah, super important.
How do you delegate that between employees when you interview them?
You know, I remember when I used to come to my boss's office and they were looking at resumes, and I'd get nosy and I'd be like, "Can I see one of those?" Yeah, and I'd be like, "Why do you like this one? Look how many jobs they've worked. They obviously are good with customer service or this and that." And I said, "Yeah, that's a problem though. Think about how many jobs they've worked in this short amount of time. What does that tell you? That this is an opportunist. They're just constantly moving around because they're either looking for more money or they're just their attitude just as a professional, it just doesn't work."
Those are all good points.
So it's like,
I would have never thought about that.
Right, because you think like, oh, most employers would rather see 2 to 3 long-term jobs. Like if I hit somebody with my resume, it's primarily like 2 or 3. One for like 2 years, one for like 10 years, one for like 3 years. That's it.
That's it, yeah.
So yeah, maybe my job experience is low because I haven't worked for many companies, but what does that tell people is that I'm loyal.
And I think that's the biggest important thing here, right?
And
being
obviously
within
within those organizations, I moved up in each and every one. That's not the point. We're not talking about the ladder of leveling up as an employee. We're talking about jobs, right? Like you've worked in 2-3 jobs, and it's like, I think here's what I will say. Like our parents were the type of people who got one job and that was it.
That was it.
That's not a good mentality either. That's not what I'm advocating for. Because there is better out there, and it requires some aggression where it's like you have to. All I'm saying is that if you're hiring one of these employees, you have to think about what the job that you're hiring them is for. If they don't have leadership skills, does that really matter if they're not in a leadership role? You see what I'm saying? You because a lot of the times it's like what you're hiring for, but yet you want the expectation of somebody who's better than that. And it's like, I hate to break it to you, but a person who's qualified to do the better job than what you're hiring isn't going to stick around long enough. Unless there's some sort of promise that he's going to continue to move up. It's one thing to hire somebody who's way above what you're looking for and say, just work here for like 6 months and I'll promote you.
So do you think that experience doesn't have a lot to do with it and more of loyalty when it comes to the hiring process of a company?
No, I think experience is very relevant, but what I'm trying to say is that the expectation from the employer shouldn't be that you're hiring entry-level position, but you're looking for medium-level experience. And what I mean by that is like, if the structure of a company is, let's say, worker, lead, manager, you can't expect your workers to be at the level of a manager because the people with that kind of experience, education, and skill won't take the job. And if they do take the job without any promise of moving up, they're going to leave just as quick. I've known plenty of skilled people who have done really well for themselves in the financial industry, except basic level roles because they were moving to the area. It was just a buffer. So they came, made some money while they were looking for their real job.
Makes a lot of sense, man.
You have to know what you're hiring too. Like that's also a responsibility of an employer. Why would this person with 20 years management experience be working as a retail, basic employee in terms of like the very first position that my company offers? Chances are they're not going to stick around. You see what I'm saying? It's like Mike Tyson won't box in featherweight.
No. Maybe now, but
yeah,
I'm like,
you know what I mean?
now.
Like if it's like, does it make sense? No. Why is it heavyweight boxing and featherweight?
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I get that.
You have to think of it in that way. Keeping an eye on your managers is really important too. I talk to a lot of people who have really good structure in their organization, and they hire managers who are really, really good, but they're really, really poor when it comes to personable experience. And a gym you go to is like that. You like the owner, you can't stand the manager.
Ah, yes. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
The way he treats everybody, the way he talks to everybody, the way he just gets under people's skin. Yeah. You're smiling because now that you've associated it with that, you're looking there going, God, I hate that guy.
Yeah, everyone does.
And it's like, that's a problem for employee retention too. I've literally seen managers who scold employees over like the intercom.
Oh, really?
And I have put it to an end the moment we were there. And I'll never forget this. We're doing an overhaul on a restaurant. And the manager who oversees like the front of the room, instead of pulling his staff like at the end of the dining shift, like in the midst of everybody, just starts berating them and yelling at them and this and that. And I pulled the employee aside because I could tell like this guy was pissed off. And I was pissed off too. I thought that was unacceptable. And they did that in my presence, so I could only imagine. Like if you knew, like think about it this way. Your boss says they're a group of business consultants coming to the restaurant. Let's be on our best behavior, right? Like that's ideally what you would expect. Is just like, hey, we have people who are here, so tighten up the ship a little bit. Don't make us look so bad. Because that's what I imagine everybody tells their employees. Like, we're going to have people here. Can you guys just try to be on your best behavior?
Yeah.
This guy, if he did that in front of us, I can't imagine what he would do without knowing that there are literally professionals in the room trying to help make this company better.
I bet that was awkward.
Not for it was infuriating. It wasn't even awkward. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
And I pulled the employee aside first before I pulled the manager aside. And that manager is now going through management training within our organization. Because
how ironic is that, my friend?
We brought it to the owner's attention that if this continues, you're going to continue to struggle. And as good as this manager, and his skills were great. He was good at what he did, but he was horrible at managing staff. He's great at papers. He's terrible with people. And I pulled the employee aside and I said, does that happen often? He goes, I'm done, dude. He was ready to quit right there. And I said, listen, I get it. You're totally frustrated. That's unacceptable. What I just witnessed. I can't believe you even did that in front of us. If you're willing to stick it through, that's why we're here. Like, you like your boss. He goes, yeah, I like my boss, but I can't work with this guy. I said, we can fix this guy. We can't fix your boss, right? You like your boss. You like everything he does. You just can't stand this guy that's in the way. We can work on that. So I said, just stick it through. And if we can't make him better at what he does, and the owner refuses to get rid of him, feel free. And he stuck it through, and things are going much better now. But it's like the iron fist management style is I think it's important to be stern with your employees when it's the time, but berating them and treating them like garbage and expecting
quality work out of them is never going to work out.
Not even quality work. I expect quality work out of everybody. If they're working for me, I don't expect you to not work as quality. But I mean, just along the lines of like, the restaurant's busy, he makes a mistake, and your initial thought is to piss him off more instead of being like, hey, brush it off. It's all right. Let's get it going. We got a packed house. We don't got time to stress about this. Just move on to the next thing. And then at the end of the shift, pull him aside and be like, hey, man, everything all right? I noticed you made that mistake and blah, blah, blah. Is there anything I could do to help you? Is there anything that I could have done to make that experience better so that mistake won't happen again?
Yeah.
Whereas, you can't believe you did that in front of you know what I mean? Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Even if there's nothing you could have done better, just giving that employee an opportunity to self-reflect and saying, hey, you know what? No, there's nothing you could have done that was a me.
Man.
Yeah, it's like, even that lets him...
That shows you care.
Yeah. It's just what it is. Because he'll tell you if it was his fault, just like, you know what, there's nothing you could have done. Mm-hmm. This was a me issue. I apologize. All right, man, well, don't worry about it. You know, it happens. Mm-hmm. But let's try to make sure that doesn't happen again. We're going to get the same result, right?
Right.
Whether we yell at him or talk to him calmly, however, the lasting impression that it left on that person is where we now made a huge difference.
Big difference.
Whereas this guy hates your guts after the way you just embarrassed him in front of people and didn't have to talk to him that way, but you chose to talk to him that way. Yeah, he may not make that mistake again.
Yeah.
But he's going to hate you every day he comes into work, and that resentment is going to build, and then he's going to be, I don't want to do this, and I don't care, I don't want to do this, and that's not my job, I'm not going to do this. That'll grow. Resentment tends to do that. When you hate where you are and resentment starts to follow suit, you start to start pushing away, and you start becoming more frustrated, and you start becoming, much more angry with everything. Little things start to bother you. Versus providing just support. And, it's one thing to get upset. I've gotten upset with people before, but I've never not gone back and been like, I apologize. That was totally out of line. It was a heat of moment kind of thing. I shouldn't have talked to you that way. I'm sorry.
Stepping aside from the ego
right.
and fixing it. Huh?
Right. And being like, you know what? I'm actively going to try to not do that anymore.
That takes a lot, man.
That takes a lot. It really does. And it's one of those things where it's like, you're not untouchable either. Like, even as an owner, you're just not untouchable. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to step back and be like, I could have done it better. Mm-hmm. Everything you do, you can always do better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important. People leave managers, not companies. Always remember that. You're not leaving the company. The company does everything it can for you. As a matter of fact, you never meet your CEO, your VP. Chances are you never do.
Right.
But you see your manager every day.
Yep.
You see your VP you see your director every day. You see your team lead every day. And those are the people that make the experience.
It's very true.
Yeah, so
very true, man.
Training, proper management training is super important, and we offer that here. So if anybody feels like their management team is just not up to par or could do better in raising company morale, because that's what a manager's intention is, to make sure that the staff is on top of their game and to make sure that the things that they're doing are helping and not hurting. That's the point of the manager is not to work in the same level as those guys. It's to be a level above and be the point of reference for those guys, the leader, the manager, the person that you trust to oversee a department or oversee a certain group of staff and then report to you. So I think management training is just huge, and it's something a lot of people don't spend enough money on and don't spend enough time with. So,
do you think that some people naturally just have that, though? Like, if you just throw someone in a position where they have to manage a wide variety of people, do you think that some people have it within them to be able to sustain a company, or is that something that also needs to be learned on the side? Because I know people are personable for the most part.
Yeah.
But do you think that it's easy to do, or does it require training?
I think training is one of those things you can never have enough of.
Yeah.
Because every industry is different. The type of people you deal with in construction is much different than the type of industry you deal with in banking. Sometimes I have to take a step back when I go on the field with clients to see their staff, especially in construction where they curse a lot and they just talk a lot of trash. And I have to remind myself that that's just that industry. Sometimes.
It's so toxic.
It's a rugged, rough, toxic industry. Mm-hmm. But there's also non-excusable things that I hear where I have to explain to the employer, I get it, but you also have to set the standard that that's not acceptable, because from an OSHA standpoint, from a sexual harassment standpoint, from a discrimination standpoint, from like there's so many violations being done where it's like that kind of talk can't be allowed. Like to a certain extent, they're dropping F-bombs fine. When they start calling each other derogatory terms and slurs, and it's like now we've overstepped, right? It's like knowing where the fine line is between it's okay and it's just way out of proportion to what should be there. So I think as far as like training management, some people have that skill and ability, but to sit there and say that they're perfect, no, nobody's perfect at their job, especially when it's a different industry. Because like I said, imagine you went into an industry where you dealt with just banking, and then now you're in the industry of construction. It's a total different world. So what you know works in banking may not work in construction. Therefore, you do need more training.
Okay.
Because you're not up to par with the standard that is
Makes a lot of sense.
construction.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean slumping down to a certain level where you're like, okay, cool, so we're just going to throw slurs and derogatory remarks to everybody because that's what they do here. No. Bringing a piece of your expertise from another company to your existing company is great because it gives you a fresh insight on things. But to say that your experience in industry B is what you need to get into industry A, it's not the case because they're two different worlds. And you have to now adjust yourself to that environment and that world and that work standard. So that would be my answer on that one. I think
it's a good explanation.
Yeah, I think like if you can drive a stick shift, you can drive a manual too. They're both cars, but they require different methods of driving, different levels of focus, different levels of attention, different levels of skill. They're both you're driving, but they're not necessarily the exact same, right?
Yeah, very true, my friend. So
go ahead.
Reducing employee pain. What do you mean by that?
I was just looking at that one too, and it's funny. Can't expect it pretty much goes to like you can't expect people to work like robots. Like they're people, and reducing their pain. Like,
okay,
if somebody feels like they spend most of their life working instead of living, the job becomes the bad guy. If I feel like all I do is work and I don't get to enjoy my life, I start to hate work. Because I don't have a life outside of work. And it's like, airlines are the perfect explanation of this. Like the pilot shortage.
Well, that's all political too.
No. Forget the political. We're talking about way before this.
Way before this.
Before
okay.
the vaccine issue, pilots were kind of like, aviation is one of those problem areas too.
Really?
There's just simply not enough pilots to fill all the airplanes. That's why you have certain pilots who are doing like 6 different flights, right?
Wow.
Like a pilot doesn't just do one flight and then go home for the week. He does one flight, stays in a hotel, finishes the flight, then does the next flight, so on and so forth. There's just not enough pilots to fill the airplanes. And on top of that, like you have retirement in waves, right? So the older generation of people who were doing something, they're getting to that age of retirement, right? So we have like the baby boomers. The baby boomers are now, our parents are all getting closer to retirement. So we have to think about the industry gap that's going to leave. I don't know what generation we are. We're millennials?
Millennials.
Okay. And then before that, it was the boomers.
Yeah.
Right. That's where
I'm not too proud of my generation. I'm sure you're not either, huh?
To an extent, no, and to an extent, yes. But you have to think about, we have all these baby boomers prepping for retirement.
Yeah.
If they're not already retiring, which is going to leave a huge gap.
In a lot of things, my friend.
In a lot of things. And it's like, this is going to be pivotal because those companies are going to have to start really thinking about, offering better salaries,
benefits, all that stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, because the people that they're retiring out are the people who had the mentality, I'm going to work at one place, I'm going to work there for 50 years. So
I was listening to this on the radio the other day. Yeah, I was. This is actually a good time to talk about that.
Right, because it's coming closer and closer. I mean, we have people retiring like crazy because they just don't want to deal with the nonsense anymore of their staff, their employees, their employer. They're just like, they're done. And you're going to have a new group of younger people coming in with higher expectations.
Yeah.
And those organizations might not be able to, facilitate those expectations. So it's like, what do you do? Now you have this shortage that we're having now.
Yeah.
Finding pain points for employees is really important too. Like going back to what I was saying is keeping them engaged. Like if it's a financial problem for them, and that's part of their pain. Pain can be described physically, emotionally, mentally, right? Like when we say employees' pain, we don't mean that their hands hurt. We're talking about what if they're just not happy. Finding the root of the problem and seeing if you can offer some sort of solution or advice. Now, going back to what I was saying is building a network kind of even in your own industry is super important. That if you're having employees who are having mental instability issues or just mental health is a big one right now and they're just not doing too hot, reach out to organizations and say, hey, I'm so-and-so such and such. I was wondering if we work exclusively within your organization, would you be able to offer our employees a discounted rate on, whatever counseling they may need? Offered to take out of their paycheck so that they could afford to go to counseling rather than making them pay for it, just like a deduction on, their retirement plan or their,
Well, with that being said, I have a question for
Yeah.
you. A company that pays their employees as subcontractors, like 1099,
yeah.
that company can't really do much in terms of like.
No, but that's
know.
we'll talk about 1099s
Okay.
probably in another podcast. But just to go to the point that like 1099, people love to do that. I hate that people love to 1099 everybody. The Board of Equalization says that in order to be a true 1099, there's a list. There's an actual list to qualify somebody as a true 1099. You can't provide them a schedule. You can't provide them equipment. You can't provide them forms. You can't provide them anything. You provide them a scope of work with a time, with an end date. And it says this job needs to be done by X a day. Great. That's it. But if I'm your employer and I 1099 you, but you're coming into my office using my phone lines, talking to my customers, using our equipment, our forms, you're not a 1099, you're a W-2.
So that's illegal.
Yes, it's highly illegal. And people do it, and I've had somebody who's done that. He had 200 1099s and like 2 employees, and the Board of Equalization audited him, went back, because that's what they do, is they go back to the very first day you hired that person and they back tax you for and these people were working for him for a long time. He ended up with a Board of Equalization tax bill of like $478,000. Lost his business, lost everything. All because he was trying to cheat taxes and save money and this and that. And the funny thing is when PPP was going on, people loved 1099ing, and then they weren't eligible for PPP money because the PPP loan said that you could give your W-2'd employees and take a cut for their wages because you paid the taxes on their wages. So you're entitled to the compensation of their wages in way of PPP money. I had so many customers coming to me going, I only got $10,000, but I have $1 million in payroll. I don't understand. I said, because you 1099'd all your employees. And you know who's eligible for all that money is the employees you 1099'd.
Damn.
Not you, because you wanted to save money in taxes. But now in the long term, you don't have the funds you need. You're not eligible for the amount that you want. And it just goes to show where it's like, do things right. Do things right from the start, and I promise you'll have a successful company. When you're starting to dance around the like legal limit of like, well, it's somewhat we're not going to tell on you. That's not our job. We're not the Board of Equalization. We can simply just tell you that's not true. That's not what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And if you choose not to listen, whatever comes from that, that's your fault. Nobody else's. So you can't sit there and be upset that you're not eligible for X, Y, and Z. But going back to your point, true 1099s who get under that scope of practice as you, that's just totally, that's a no-go.
No-go.
No-go. The only time you can be a true 1099 is here's a perfect example. Let's say it's a cleaning company, and they give you a 1099. Did you show up with your own equipment? No. Did you show up with your own chemicals? No. Did you show up with your own schedule? No. Then you're not a 1099. It's as simple as that. I had a customer who said, well, my employees like to be paid in 1099. And I said, I understand that you like to pay that. They want to be.
But that's not an excuse.
It's And if she's listening, I love you. You know I do. But we talked about it. And we talked and she said, well, I just got to keep my employees. It's the only way I can keep them happy. It's like,
Okay.
I'm sorry, but that's not okay.
Yeah.
But going forward, it's like I said, with new employees, don't do that. Don't give them the option. Don't even tell them that that's an option because it's not an option. Your W-2, that's it. And if you are going to 1099 them, then that was part of the plan, then they need to start buying their own stuff. You want to be a 1099? Be a 1099. But you better buy your own stuff because don't use mine because that's not 1099.
Okay.
But yeah, man, we're 50 minutes into this one. I think this was a really good one. And
I do too.
Any other things you want?
Let's touch on one more topic here.
The salary?
Yes.
Salary and benefits must be competitive.
Yeah.
That's true. I was looking at that one. I was like, that's it. So, Glassdoor survey showed people in recruitment, HR and hiring managers found that 45% of employees who quit, the top reason is salary. So going back to what I said, right? The opportunist in the company, that's only 45%. So that's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But 55% are the loyal ones. 45 is a lot. But 55% are the ones who stay because there's more to it than just money. But going back to our point, that 45%, which is almost half of your employee base, quit because of salary. But then the following reason, going back to our ladder that we talked about, is career advancement opportunities, better benefits, and location.
Yeah. Like working for the union, for example, huh?
Yeah, I don't have much experience in working for the union, so I don't really have much
Great
of a
benefits.
say. Right, but there's also a lot of BS that comes with that too.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like I personally don't have any experience with that. If you do, you can share.
Yeah.
You can tell us what that's like. I have never had the opportunity to work for a union job.
Well, honestly, working with the union, it's great because the team you work with, it feels like a family. Everyone's in a good mood. Although the scope of work may be difficult, everyone's in a good mood. You feel great going to work. You get paid well. The benefits are great. And there's room to grow within the company. So that's why I believe that those are important things also because, I mean, it all brings us together and it continues to keep every employee growing within the industry. So
one of the interesting things in this conversation we're having, so a collection of recent surveys showed on employee retention only, 24% of Generation X, which I think is after millennials.
Yeah.
And then the newest one is Y. It's hard to keep up with this stuff.
XYZ, whatever it is.
Generation X say that financial stability motivates them to stay in a job, 24%, while 56% of employees say that healthcare and insurance concerns keeps them in their jobs. Going back to the pay may not be as good, but if my benefits are awesome, sometimes it's a comparable exchange.
What would you pick?
Me, currently, benefits.
Oh, okay.
But if the pay gap is too wide, like if everybody in the industry is paying $15 and you're paying 10 and you have great benefits, I'm sorry. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be $2, $3 off and have better benefits. It's another thing to just not have benefits and pay $10.
Yeah.
$5 less. So you have to understand.
I think the important thing is a gap.
It's by age too. A 20-year-old, 19-year-old kid doesn't care about benefits and insurance.
Yeah.
He's healthy. The thought of retirement doesn't even reach his mind. He's just interested about money. I got to get the new Yeezys. I got to get this new car. It's like mentally everybody's in a different place. Whereas there's some young entrepreneurial minds out there who are like, I'm about benefits. I'm about insurance. I'm about setting up for retirement, because you can never be too young to set up for retirement, really. Mm-hmm. But then you have like the people like myself who are like, well, I need insurance because if I get sick, if my daughter gets sick, I need time off because I want to go to vacation with my family. Whereas like the young hustle mentality is grind. And it's like, that's great. But those are very opportunist mentalities too, because it's like your competitor. You could tell them, well, we offer a great 401 program that does an employee match at 3%. And they're like, I'm not giving you 3% of my salary for what? It's like for your retirement. But the concept of retirement just
goes out the window.
Yeah, it's just not something they're interested in because in their world, they're so young and that's a later date to worry about that it's like, you just have to be competitive. You have to know what's the market of your wages and you have to keep up with it. I've always told people that you could offer not substantially, let's say the starting pay at company A is $15 with very little benefits and bad insurance. And the starting pay at company B is $13, but with great benefits and great insurance. And the reason that the pay is less is because he's got to pay more for benefits and insurance, right? Highlighting the benefits and insurance should be the number one point. Wage should be second. Now, what I would recommend in that situation is offering a wage increase quarterly, semi-annually, yearly with a ceiling. You can start at 13, but you can get to 17. So now you've built loyalty because that person's like, I may be making less now, but in 2 years I'll be at 17 and I'll have these awesome benefits and I love my job. Right? Mm-hmm. But if somebody hits the market and they're giving 21 plus benefits and this and that, like, I'm sorry, you just can't compete with that.
You can't.
You're going to lose your employees to that. And it's not your fault, but you have to be competitive. And I think the problem is like people who offer wage raises to their employees when they're about to quit is the most disrespectful thing you can do.
I see it happen all the time.
Or it's like, well, how much are they offering you? We'll offer you more. It's like, okay, so now that I'm leaving, you're willing to offer me more money. Mm-hmm. But when I asked you for a raise 6 months ago, you said, sorry, we just can't do it. Well, guess what? You can't do it, but he can. So I'm going to go work for him. And you've broken that trust. Because now that you're willing to offer these things that 6 months ago, when I tried to give you an opportunity without telling you I'm leaving by saying, hey, can I get a wage raise? And you said, sorry, man, we don't do that here. And then I tell you, all right, boss, well, I'm putting my 2 weeks in. I found a better job. What can I do to keep you to stay? How much are they paying you? I'll match it. That shows me that you don't value me. You don't care about me. And the only reason you're trying to keep me is because of your reason. You know you can't afford to lose me. Yeah, you need me. You can't afford to lose me. And now that I'm leaving, all of a sudden, these windows of opportunity have opened up. And personally, I was like, sorry, I don't work like that. Yeah. Me personally, I'd be like, I'm not interested. Mm-hmm. The guy who's never met me is willing to offer me more. I've busted my ass for you for 3 years, and you didn't even care to talk to me.
Wow.
So that means you don't appreciate me,
Very
but the
true.
guy who's never met me appreciates me.
Very true.
So be competitive in the wages, but also give people a path to work towards, give them opportunities, give them incentives, work 6 months. We raise it every 50 cents every 6 months with a ceiling up to 18. And you will have you might have some turnover because it's just people.
We're humans, yeah.
You'll have a lot more in way of loyalty with the employees that you do keep versus another industry.
It's great advice.
Yeah, so we appreciate everybody listening.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, no, and one thing we want to share with you guys is our wholesale license just got approved, so now we are offering in-house payroll services as well. So we have partnered with ADP, and we are a wholesaler through them, so ADP does not set our prices. We price it out ourselves, so we have a lot of competitive offers going on right now. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to us. Our website's mitm.services. You can reach us at our phone number, 760-227-8868. And if you want to email us, it's info@mitm.services. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We hope you have a great rest of your Sunday and look forward to your Monday, which should be like Friday if you're happy with work. And if not, then you maybe should be thinking about it. George, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. This podcast is you and me, man. This
it's
is
us.
It's us. And make sure to check us out on Instagram, MITM Business Consultants, and we're now putting out more in regards to that platform. So we should be doing our TikTok here pretty soon, where we're going to be debunking.
Oh, that's
going to be YouTube Shorts. We're going to be debunking a lot of 18-year-olds that think they're financial experts and know nothing about what they're talking about. So thank you, everybody. We hope you had a great time, and we hope to see you on the next podcast. Everybody take care.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Man in the Middle. If you haven't yet, please consider liking and subscribing to the show. If you can't wait till next episode, follow us on Instagram at MITM Business Consulting and online at mitm.services. There, you can learn more about what we do, how we can help, and the custom services we offer around your personal needs. Until next time, if you'd like to choose the topic we discuss and receive additional services, consider joining our membership program at mitm.services.
Disclaimer. Man in the Middle expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, reliance on, or inability to use this podcast or the information presented in this podcast.
We look forward to you tuning in next time.